He loved his life. He loved America. He loved nature, which helped him always bring him closer to God. He loved the Chicago Cubs. And my goodness, did he love the Oregon Ducks. Want me to say go Ducks, so I have to since they play on Saturday. So go Ducks. But most of all, Charlie loved his children, and he loved me with all of his heart. And I knew that. Every day I knew that. He made sure I knew that every day. Every day he would ask me, how can I serve you better? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? Every day. Every day. He was such a good man. He still is a good man. He was the perfect father. He was the perfect husband.
Charlie Kirk's wife, Erika, has been remembering her husband and his legacy 2 days after he was shot dead during a Turning Point USA event in Utah. And it's no secret that political violence is a growing problem in the United States. On the eve of the election last year, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a military-focused think tank, found that the number of domestic terrorist attacks and plots against government targets motivated by partisan political beliefs in the past 5 years is nearly triple the number of such incidents in the previous 25 years combined. But this trend started years earlier. In early 2011, a man opened fire on Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords as she met constituents. She was shot in the head, but survived. 6 others died, including a federal judge. Later that year, a man opened fire on the White House with a rifle after reportedly telling friends that President Barack Obama, quote, had to be stopped. In 2017, a gunman opened fire on members of Congress practicing for a charity baseball game. 4 people were injured, including Congressman Steve Scalise. Just 2 months later, a white supremacist drove his car into a crowd protesting a neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. 35 people were hurt. One, Heather Heyer, was killed. In 2018, the so-called MAGA bomber mailed 16 pipe bombs to politicians and public figures. He later pled guilty to 65 felonies. In 2020, 14 men were arrested for plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer over her COVID restrictions. And then there was January 6th, the Capitol insurrection. Trump pardoned or commuted the sentences of all of the roughly 1,600 convicted and accused rioters. In 2022, Paul Pelosi was critically wounded by a home invader wielding a hammer. The assailant had reportedly been looking for former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And then last summer, a would-be assassin fired a shot at Donald Trump as the former president spoke at a campaign rally. 2 months later, police would arrest a man stalking Trump at a golf course. He, too, reportedly planned to assassinate the president. And this year already, there was the firebombing of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence in April. The next month, a man fatally shot 2 Israeli embassy staffers near a Jewish museum in downtown Washington. And then in June, a gunman posing as a cop went to the home of Minnesota State House Speaker Melissa Hortman, killing her, her husband, and their dog. The gunman also critically wounded State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. In August, an anti-vax gunman fired more than 180 shots into the CDC headquarters in Atlanta. This is just a partial list. It does not include the politically motivated mass shootings that killed dozens in Charleston, in Orlando, in El Paso, in Buffalo, in Pittsburgh. But this isn't the first time the United States has been racked by political violence.
We're back now with our world lead. Polish officials today contradicting President Trump, who essentially gave Russia an out for violating Polish airspace.
Could have been a mistake. Could have been a mistake. But regardless, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that whole situation.
Today, the Polish prime minister wrote on X, quote, "We would also wish that the drone attack on Poland was a mistake, but it wasn't, and we know it." Poland says Russia launched as many as 21 drones, forcing NATO countries to scramble fighter jets and shoot them down. Others crashed in eastern Poland. Joining us now, Kim Dozier, a CNN Global Affairs analyst. The Poles say they know it. I mean, it sounds like this is not just conjecture or assumption on their part.
A lot of the drones that were shot down were Gerbera drones. They do have an onboard guidance system, so it's possible that the Poles have technically extracted the flight plan from the drones. Even so, though, you could just look at the numbers.
Right.
1 or 2 incursions, maybe that's a mistake. But when you've got more than a dozen drones flying into Polish airspace, just ahead of Belarus and Russia launching these huge military exercises, it looks like they're probing Polish defenses, and Polish air defenses weren't so great.
And possibly probing not just the air defenses, right, but also NATO's reaction or willingness to react, and I imagine crucially, President Trump's willingness to respond.
And President Trump's first reaction was, oh, they probably didn't mean it.
Right.
Which is the same sort of pass that Ukrainian officials feel he's given Putin time and time again when it comes to saying he'll be willing to move ahead with peace talks and then coming up with a million excuses not to, while stepping up attacks against Ukraine on the ground.
So let me play what Trump said on Fox this morning when asked if he would consider more sanctions on Russia because of this incursion.
Yeah, well,
More
Poland
sanctions?
thing, I mean, I'm not going to defend anybody, but the Poland, they were actually knocked down and they fell into an area. But he shouldn't be close to Poland anyway.
He had a clear opportunity there of many over the course of weeks and months where he himself has said that sanctions were coming and broken his own deadlines repeatedly. He had another chance, and he's certainly not committing himself here. How does Russia read those repeated instances of him backing off?
As a green light to keep doing whatever it's doing, while European and Ukrainian officials are angry over this lack of reaction, they don't want to trigger any sort of meltdown by Trump. They don't want to criticize him and have him say, I'm not going to participate at all. So instead, they're participating in these back and forth negotiations, trying to get Trump to walk up to the line to impose sanctions. There were negotiations in Washington this week. Apparently, the latest disagreement is that Trump wants to put a bunch of tariffs against China and more tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, whereas the European Union said, no, tariffs are taxes. Let's keep going after all the business enterprises that are keeping the Russian war machine going.
Yeah, I mean, it would be another, missed opportunity, right, to impose actual consequences on Russia itself. Another spot for difficult, awkward, perhaps dinner for him tonight in New York with the Qatari Prime Minister. 3 days ago, of course, Israel launched strikes in Qatar. Trump seemed to express some discomfort with this. Is he going to get a talking to from the Qataris?
Well, Trump came out and said that this will never happen again. So the Qataris will be asking him, okay, exactly how are you going to make sure it will never happen again when you weren't informed about this before it took place? When your warning to us came, the explosions had already gone off. So they want reassurance. They have said they're willing to keep mediating talks, but they say right now there isn't a lot to talk about because all the trust has been blown up, literally. And the Washington Post just came out with an exclusive saying that the Mossad actually had balked at this attack and had refused to do an on-the-ground attack, which is one of the reasons it apparently wasn't successful.
Well, one thing Netanyahu and Putin seem to share, right, is a willingness to test Trump, and his own reactions. Kim Dozier, thanks so much.